Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the last wrestling podcast. Because if I have a wrestling podcast, I get to be a small part of a moment of history. For the first time in years, serious competition in American televised professional wrestling is here. TNA was sort of competition. Ring of Honor was sort of competition. New Japan, sort of competition. Tonight, actual competition to WWE. That's right, we're going to be taking a look at the first episode of All Elite Wrestling Dynamite. And this is going to be a live-ish review, which means I watch the show, and every segment or so I will comment on it, and hopefully amuse you, and hopefully you will enjoy my thoughts. If you do, please click the like button, leave a comment, subscribe, and we're such a small channel, I'm such a small channel, I'm the only one here, I'm such a small channel that if you leave me a subscription, if you subscribe, and YouTube will let me know what your name is, I will give you a shout out on my next video. Because I am extremely cheap. Starting off with the opening sequence, which is a very colorful digital effect, almost a blast of rainbow sand over various highlights. I particularly like the image of Kenny Omega kneeing somebody in the face and causing rainbows to shoot out of his knee. That was actually pretty darn cool. Never seen anything like that as far as the effects go, but interesting. Can't understand a bloody word that the person singing the song is saying, but it's a nice, upbeat, adrenaline-pumping song, and I think it works for the start of a wrestling show. We then get a shot of the entrance area as the pyrotechnics go off, and it's pretty much the same that they've been doing for the last couple of shows. They still have the chandelier, that's what I'm going to be calling it from now on. And I love this two entrance ramps, two entrance tunnels. One for the good guys, one for the bad guys, because if these guys hate each other, if they meet each other in the back before the match starts, before they get to the ring, what's stopping them from fighting each other? Nothing. Always love this. Two entrances, perfect. Very obvious TNT branding, but, they got corporate masters they have to suck up to now. Very, very good. We also get a nice crowd shot of the arena going into our first part of the actual show. Now, before we continue here, I'm going to be looking at this as if I'm a first-time viewer. The idea is that this show has the biggest potential audience, and face it, the biggest actual audience, of anything they've ever done. So, this is the first impression. Are they going to be able to get everybody caught up that hasn't been watching their previous shows? I don't know. That's going to be their biggest challenge, I think, tonight, in addition to just making a good first impression. Let's see how they do. Speaking of first impressions, the first thing we see is our announce team of good old JR, Tony Schiavone, and Excalibur. And if there's any three more different individuals to call a wrestling show, of course, everybody knows who JR is. Tony Schiavone was one of the voices of WCW for pretty much the entire time they were relevant. And honestly, I never watched WCW, so I don't know much about Tony Schiavone as an announcer. Excalibur here in his mask, a lot of people have Jim Cornette mainly, has criticized Excalibur for wearing the mask. I think he looks cool. I think he stands out, he looks like he has a personality, and being the one guy in this trio who isn't famous, it gives him a personality when he really doesn't seem to have one otherwise. They then do something that I absolutely love, which is they run down the card for the night. We're not starting with a 20-minute in-the-ring promo package, in-the-ring promo. We're not starting with a match that nobody cares about. They're actually running down, this is what you're going to see tonight. I actually really like that. And this show has the credibility that they're actually going to stick with that. They're actually going to show us this stuff. There's not going to be a bait and switch, and hopefully they'll stick to that. But good beginning, and we're starting off with a match between Cody Rhodes and Sammy Guevara. Note he still cannot call himself Rhodes, but I'm going to do that going forward. And I love that even the opening match gets this kind of graphic package and gets the video. Most of this was reused footage from one of the Road to Dynamite, I think, or Road to TNT videos that they put online, but it's still very good. The story is you've got the veteran who's split his concentration in 100 different directions versus the young, hungry, focused, biggest match of his life underdog in Sammy Guevara. And Guevara saying, yeah, Cody's looking past me. He's looking ahead to Chris Jericho and a title match at the pay-per-view, but I am focused 100% on Cody, first match on AEW Dynamite. And Cody saying, I'm not anyone to look past anybody, but yeah, I'm kind of looking past this kid. So I think Cody going to, I presume, be the heel here. And I like that there's not really a lot of bells and whistles to this. Show you the background, establish the characters, hopefully hook you, and go straight into the first wrestling match. So far, it's a tight format, and I like it. Adrenaline in my soul, every thought out of control. Do it all to get them off their feet. Crowd is here, about to blow, waiting for me to start the show. Out the curtain, lights go up, I'm home. Those are the first couple stanzas of Cody's entrance music, following, of course, the fact that wrestling has more than one royal family. Do these words fit the character? I'm not entirely sure. Do they fit the man? I think they do. Okay, this was a pretty good match to start us off. They didn't go crazy though. There was a lot of high-flying moves, mostly from Guevara, but that fit into his character, as I'll get to in a moment. The match begins, or the segment I should say, begins with Cody and Brandy appearing under the chandelier. They come out to the entrance, and remember what I said about Cody playing the heel? Not happening. He is over as the central babyface here, and the crowd made that pretty obvious. Guevara comes out wearing his dead panda, which I still don't get. Somebody explain to me what the panda has to do with anything. He's not from China. He doesn't work in a zoo. He's not a wrestling zookeeper. He doesn't appear to be a wrestling big game hunter or anything. What's up with the bloody panda? Anyway, the match told a cohesive story. It told the story of Cody trying to ground the high flyer, and it told the story of the high flyer trying to outmaneuver the larger, slower, older veteran. That was good. It also established Guevara, because most people don't know who Sammy Guevara is, established him as a highly athletic wrestler capable of doing some great moves, lots of moonsaults, backflips, standing Spanish fly off the top rope, etc., etc. But he's just not good enough. And when things start to not go his way, he cheats, and that's why he's a heel. In this case, Cody goes for a suicide dive, and Brandy gets pulled in, and she takes the brunt of the impact. That looked really good. What did not look good happened a few minutes later, and I'm getting a call back to listening through the New Generation era podcast, and when they would do WCW events, and apparently this happened a lot. The woman hits the heel, or the woman hits the wrestler with her shoe. Yes, Brandy clocks Guevara with the shoe as a receipt for pulling her in front of the Flying Cody. And thankfully, that was not the finish, the shot with the high heel. The match went on for several more minutes. Cody able to counter a shooting star press by getting his knees up in time, converts that into a small package, and 1, 2, 3, victory. Cody remains undefeated in AEW and still the presumptive #1 contender. One thing I liked about this match was the commentators brought it all back to the championship. There was talk about if Cody loses this match, he may be out of the title picture. He may not have that #1 contendership. If Guevara wins this match, that's not necessarily going to get him a title shot, but that will put him in the conversation. It was all about the belts. So, a few worrying things. The fact that Cody's getting all the bells and whistles, but other than that, very good match to start us off. After the match, we cut to an in-ring interview, which I like. More of that, please. When the heel comes up, offers a handshake, which is accepted, though they do not violate the Quackin' Code, and they do not hug. But it is, of course, all a ruse, as Chris Jericho comes out, beats the living hell out of Cody for the entire commercial break, actually, and then goes up to the top of the ramp, says his name, I am Chris Jericho, I'm the champion of AEW. You're welcome. A good, if somewhat basic setup for the title match at the next pay-per-view, Full Gear. And it went on a bit long, and I don't know if Guevara was officially involved in this, if he and Jericho are allied in some way, or if it was just an opportunity. But either way, good, if somewhat formulaic, start to things. Our next match is Brandon Cutler, whose character for this program, or at least for this match, is that he is a wrestling D&D player. He's also apparently a childhood friend of the Young Bucks. We're told he broke into the business with them, but left to start a family, but the wrestling bug, blah, 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 blah. He's a wrestler who plays D&D. That's pretty much all you need to know about him going into this match. His opponent in this contest will be one of the best heels in AEW, MJF, Maxwell Jacob Friedman, whose character for the purposes of this match is, boo, nerd, I'm rich, you're a dork. Was that a squash match with a story behind it? Awesome! Okay, yeah, this match does not go very long. Basically what happens is Brandon Cutler tweaks his knee on a tope. That means he's unable to balance on the top rope, and MJF takes advantage, locks in his signature submission move, the Salt of the Earth, which is basically a Fujiwara armbar, the end. And Bryce does not look happy when he has to raise the guy's hand. Next thing we see is a very shouty man in a suit introducing a couple of celebrities in the crowd. And this is cross-promotion for a Jay and Silent Bob reboot movie, which I genuinely only now just learned is happening, that apparently Chris Jericho was involved in, and at least these guys were smart enough not to completely break the magic here, as they say, hey, Chris Jericho plays a villain in our movie, we didn't realize it was typecasting. So at least they're not saying, oh, well, he's such a wonderful guy, he's great, he's awesome. Well, they did a little bit, but they got over it. At which point, Angelico and Jack Evans come out and yell at the celebrities for, I guess, reasons. Please, 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 please let this not be a celebrities wrestle type of thing. Do not let this lead to that. Do not let this lead to wrestling fantasy camp. This quickly devolves into rutabaga, rutabaga, rutabaga until Private Party shows up and doesn't do anything. Next, we get our first serious look at the bracket for the tag team tournament, and this leads into a video in Washington, D.C. featuring SCU, and the entire joke is that Scorpio Sky is doing actually a fairly decent Barack Obama impression, and credit to Christopher Daniels. He makes the MIB thing look good, the Secret Service get up there. Fortunately, this didn't outstay its welcome. We got the premise, we got the bit, it was cute, some people may have found it funny, I found it okay, it didn't wear out its welcome, We cut back to the arena where Tony Schiavone interviews all 3 members of SCU, and we find out that the Secret Service guys are going to be the 2 representing the unit in the tag team tournament. It's going to be Christopher Daniels and Frankie Kazarian. They mentioned that these guys are former 4-time tag team champions, not explicitly mentioning Ring of Honor, but still very nice. And then things start to get interesting because the Lucha Brothers show up. Pentagon and Phoenix. And I give all credit in the world to Pentagon. Somehow he makes that suit look good, and I have no idea how he does it. Phoenix, whose English is a lot better than it used to be, gets on the mic and says, "Just one thing we want to remind you. We are the best tag team in the universe, and let me tell you why." Points the mic at his brother's mouth so the Pentagon can deliver the catchphrase with the crowd, thankfully, chanting along. So we have some Lucha Underground fans in attendance. Cierro miedo. Pentagon then spits mist in the face of, or water actually, I think it was, in the face of Christopher Daniels, and the inevitable brawl begins. The only problem is, I don't think this was a successful segment, and here's why. If you don't know who these teams are, do you now know who they are? And I would argue no. I would say that you got the idea that SCU are the veterans, you got the idea that they're not a completely serious group of individuals, and you now know what their catchphrase is. "This is the worst town I've ever been in." Which, I don't think you kind of got that they were supposed to be the baby faces. Or are they? I honestly don't know at this point. The Lucha Brothers, if you don't know these guys, at least Tony Schiavone, I believe it was, or it might have been Excalibur, had the courtesy to translate Cierro Miedo as no fear or zero fear. But other than that, what do you know about the Lucha Brothers, other than the fact that they're masked wrestlers and they're very snappy dressers, and Pentagon likes to spit at people? So not a big hit and kind of a miss with that segment. And for the first time in what feels like half an hour, we're actually getting ready for a wrestling match. Hangman Page, who's coming off of a huge loss to Chris Jericho in the main event of the last pay-per-view, and a match in which he got well and thoroughly spanked, so I'm not even sure why he's on the show, versus Pac, who's coming off of a Dynamite, pun intended, actually it's not even a pun, is it? Coming off a Dynamite debut in AEW, beating Kenny Omega clean in the middle of the ring at the last pay-per-view. So we've got one person in Page who's kind of on the descent, and we've got Pac who's on his way up. I don't think Page is going to get to ride his horse into the arena this time. That is a very happy British man. That is Pac, now 2-0 in AEW, and oh dear God, this was a boring match. First of all, the white guy in the black trunks and the black boots versus the white guy in the black trunks and the black boots was kind of dull to watch, to be honest. And this match just plain dragged. They decided to go for the brawling style, brawl around the outside of the ring, and I'll be honest, I couldn't really tell you what happened in this match, and I just finished watching it as I'm recording this. If I was watching the whole show and then trying to tell you what happened, I would tell you this is a match that happened. Pac wins with the Rings of Saturn. Though Page did not tap out, it was a TKO. The referee called it, saying that Page was not responding, was not defending himself. End of match. And I think we can now officially say the Adam Page experiment is over. Because I know Pac is better than this. I'm not sure Adam Page is. Up next, the match I am both most looking forward to tonight, and the match I am genuinely dreading tonight. It's Riho versus Nyla Rose to crown the inaugural AEW Women's Champion. Nyla Rose winning the Casino Battle Royal to get her opportunity. Riho winning a singles match to get her opportunity. Also, she's friends with Kenny Omega. And I will not pretend to be unbiased here. I want Nyla Rose to win. I want her for many reasons, most of which are frankly too personal to talk about here. But I want her to win because they're telling a beautiful story with her by not telling an obvious story with her. Let's hope they have the courage to see it through. Dr. Britt Baker on commentary, so we'll have a 4-person announce team for this. And I really hope Goliath kicks David's ass on this one. Damn it. Very good match. Wrong outcome. On the plus side, Nyla gets her heat back by beating up Michael Nakazawa, who was there because reasons, and actually gets into it with Kenny Omega, who was there because he has a pre-existing relationship with Riho, and that actually does make complete sense from a storyline perspective. Last comment on this match, and I hope this was real and not a manipulation by AEW. While a lot of people were booing Nyla Rose because she was playing the heel in this David versus Goliath matchup, and that again does make sense, they were booing her because she was being a heel. I didn't hear any slurs directed towards her. Okay, for those of you who don't know, Nyla Rose is a transgender woman, and I think it's taken great courage, and it has been a beautiful thing to watch in AEW that she has been portrayed as just one of the girls. She is indistinguishable from Awesome Kong. You know, she has the advantage of size, weight, height, etc., but that's never been attributed to her being a transgender woman. In fact, her trans status has never been mentioned. I only found out about it because I looked her up, I Googled her to see if she was actually Native or Native American, because there's been a long history in wrestling of non-Native wrestlers playing Native American or First Nation characters. And no, Nyla Rose is completely legit when it comes to being the native beast. And the fact that, aside from one sort of linguistic comment from JR, there hasn't even been a hint of anybody using transphobia for babyface heat in this promotion. And as much as I would like to see a trans woman be the women's champion, I can be satisfied with the fact that at least they're telling the story, by not telling the story. Up next, main event, trios match. Let's get this over with. And then stupid happened. Okay, this match doesn't matter at all, and frankly, should be a no contest. Jon Moxley slides into the ring behind Kenny Omega, beats the crap out of Kenny, drags him all the way back to the VIP area, and puts him through a glass table. Somehow, the match was allowed to continue after this. Outside interference, disqualification. Your winners, as the result of a disqualification, the Elite. Period. That should have been the end of the match. But no, apparently trios match. Well, that's the thing. They never mentioned it, but maybe trios matches in AEW are no DQ by definition. This was dumb. Jericho eventually hits the Judas effect on one of the Young Bucks to technically win the match that should have been over about 5-6 minutes prior. And then Schmoz Mania is running wild, brother, as Cody Rhodes comes out to help his friends. Sammy Guevara comes out to kick Cody in the Golden Globes, and Dustin Rhodes comes out, and apparently he just sort of sits in the backstage in his full ring gear, complete with half of his face made up because reasons, and he comes out to try to help his little brother. And then Jake Hager, formerly known as Jake Strong, formerly known as... Oh god, what's his name in WWE? It's late and I'm tired. Jack Swagger, that was it. Comes out and he's allied with Jericho and Guevara and the team formerly known as ALX, currently ALX. I say ALX. The team formerly known as LAX and currently known as nothing. Apparently, this is now a 5-man unit that is working together, and that's the end of the show. Not 1, not 2, not 3, not 4, but 5 run-ins in this schmoz. And, okay, kind of overbooked, but maybe they're trying to give the impression that AEW is going to be a weekly car crash, in which case, best of luck to them. Final thoughts on the show, more good than bad, in my opinion. On the good side, the Cody match was very good. They did a good job of getting you caught up on, if you haven't been following the promotion. The video packages, as always, are excellent. While I wish they'd gone the other way in the finish, the Nyla Rose Riho match was absolutely amazingly good. Especially for what it was. And I genuinely hope Rio's going to be a good first women's champion. Let's just be positive about that. Main event was of absolutely no consequence except to introduce Jake Hager, which I don't think is a great investment, though he is the final, or the most recent, the reigning and probably final Lucha Underground champion, and technically a dark god. Yeah, no way they're going to bring that up, but he does have the power of the mysterious benefactor residing within his soul, as far as I'm concerned. It's all one big cinematic universe. Oh, speaking of which, I do like the Be the Elite Marvel Universe entrance video. That was good. Speaking of videos, all the production was on point. The pyro was great. I didn't see any major screw-ups in the camera or in the audio. They've had audio problems in the past. That seems to be fixed. Fantastic. Negative. The main event didn't need to happen. The ending was a complete disaster, and now I genuinely don't know what the rules are of AEW, because apparently you can attack somebody in the middle of a match, drag them across the arena, and put them through furniture, and the referee's just going to shrug his shoulders and go, whatever. The Hangman Page Pac match was an absolute disaster. Did not need to be there. The squash match, while forgettable, was effective as a squash match, and I love that even the squash match got a little bit of story. So, did they do a good enough job for their first impression? Assume that most of the people seeing this had never seen any AEW product before. Did they do a good enough job to get you coming back next week? No. I do not believe they did. Lucha Underground jokes aside, I'm sorry, but Jack Swagger isn't a big enough get. Moxley coming back, not enough on its own as far as the big Lex Luger moment. No, that just didn't work. They introduced quite a few characters, but they didn't do a great job of doing it. They didn't do a great job of introducing them, as I mentioned in the segment on the tag teams. And again, with the exception of the Cody Rhodes match and the women's match, most of the matches on this show just weren't that great. So, while they looked big league and they looked like they knew what they were doing, I'm just not seeing it as far as a hot product. Now, do they have the ability? Do they have the tools to heat themselves up? Yes, but you don't get a second chance to make a first impression. Will that schmoz of an ending draw people? I don't know. We're going to wait for the ratings information to come in, but this show was just okay, and I don't think they can afford to be just okay. Final grade for this show, it's a B. And that does it for this episode of the Last Wrestling Podcast. Please like, share, and subscribe. Leave a comment. Let me know if you think I'm right about this show. Let me know if you think I'm out of my mind on this show. And if you've got any transphobic comments about Nyla Rose, I will block your ass immediately. Thank you very much. Catchphrase sign off.